Bonjour, hello everybody. Welcome to this very first video to share with you a will to open some doors today. Some doors and pathways that are already open actually for thousands of years. And these doors, I would like to reopen them with you, for us, our friends, family, children, and to some extent for the present and future of our evolution. Yes, no less than that. As a little and humble level that is mine, we will share here some thoughts about preventive health and holistic health, and to a certain extent, sometimes topics that orbitate around them. The aim, ultimately, it is to put more consciousness in our lives so that we can take action more responsibly, to be more autonomous, and in the end to explore just the great and immense dimension of the being, of being on this planet, and the living within ourselves and around us in the real life, in the now and nowhere else. It's an invitation, you can take it or not. It is an invitation to enhance your curiosity, your drive to look for informations, and to ultimately take action for yourself. The recent past months have seen our political and economical systems shaken. The so-called healthcare systems have been challenged, even though there would be a lot to say about the decisions and visions stemming from the Western governments and transnational organizations during this crisis. Will picked up on that crisis to drive on what seems essential to remember and revivify. Repeatedly, the words virus, lockdowns, treatments, diseases, and death have been pronounced a lot. But what about health, adaptation, immune system, vitality, and life actually? When lockdowns and a possible future vaccine seem to be the first choice options, according to our leaders and of course the always well-intentioned people around them, it is interesting to notice that mortality rates in the countries where lockdowns were stricter are not the lowest ones. For example, the viruses SARS-CoV and MERS vaccines still haven't been found in 20 years. And David Nabarro, one of the most respected medical voices in the world, poses the benefits-risks balance question of a potential vaccine, which would be elaborated in a rush, especially when Covid19 is in about 90% cases benign. I've been closely following the work and results of the French professor called Didier Raoult. He undertook systematic screenings in his clinic in Marseille as the outbreak started in France. He treated SARS-CoV-2 patients with hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, which is an antibiotic, and he had outstanding results. Moreover, I will mention the case of the doctor called Sabine Palliard-Franco, who apparently managed to cure 100% of her patients. This got super viral, but in no case this aroused the interest of the public health authorities in France. These are just micro examples, and I mention them here to put back into perspective the so-called dangerosity of such a virus and the measures that have been taken. It goes without saying that this virus has caused some death, some traumatic experiences, some chaos in some unprepared healthcare systems logistics, but so have already done other viruses in the past, and like for other causes, some people are dying all the time. It is part of life. Nevertheless, we are allowed to ask ourselves, does the virus Covid-19 justify or did justify to take such measures worldwide? Time will tell us, but we can already see that the narrative used to create these measures is a perfect narrative for some pharmaceutical laboratories who are now in a crazy competitive race to find a so-called vaccine. It is a perfect narrative for some governments to reinforce social control. And it's a perfect narrative to remove slowly but surely some freedoms. In the name of what? Security? Health? Do we really want to believe that these measures are made to protect the humanity? To make us evolve in a direction that we could qualify as of beautiful? It is imperative to go back to some forgotten foundations that are still around the corner, actually within ourselves. Let us not delegate our health to authorities and institutions that in no case ensure healthcare policies, but rather disease policies. Never our political, mediatical, pharmaceutical complex has talked about information about the capital importance of the immune system, for example. Lifestyle, immune system, natural and fundamental health pillars to prevent ourselves from all type of infections and degenerations. That is what this is really about. And that doesn't cost much. Perhaps that is the real problem for some people. The immune system enables us to adapt. We are adaptive beings. First, do no harm. It is the first motto that we should apply to ourselves to have a strong health. That is the guarantee to be a grounded pilot in our bodies and therefore in our lives. The immune system covers our ability to adapt ourselves in the environment, and it works at all time to allow what is called the homeostatic principle, which is the functional harmony of all our organs and different systems in our body. For example, the skin, the mucous membranes made of millions of bacteria operate for us to let us adapt to the milieu. The lymphatic system, inflammations, and the emunctories, that are organs such as liver, intestines, kidneys, lungs, skin. They all play a major role in the immune system. The microbiome, it is an immense pool of bacteria in our intestines. It is the guarantor of about 80% of our immune system, which is to be found in our guts. This microbiome has also a direct influence on our mood, our emotions. It is often called the enteric brain. We can't really measure through technical means the efficiency of the immune system, but signs such as the level of general vitality, digestive vitality, for example, the response to infections, scarring process velocity, they all are good indicators to measure the immunity. When a symptom appears, we tend to want to eliminate the symptom instead of targeting the cause. And here we dive deep into the very core of a paradigm that is urgent to question. I am going to tell you a little story here. This brings us back mainly to a rivalry between two scientists. They're called Antoine Béchamp and Louis Pasteur. The Pasteur dogma is still very significant today, and it does not globally heal. It aims at suppressing the symptoms. History is made of myth, and the Pasteur's narrative is one of them. We stumble here on a very hard task of the human psyche though, to call an official narrative into question. So let's go for a bit of history here. Antoine Béchamp, before his death in 1908, had an incredible list of scientist appointments at French universities. He was, for example, Doctor of Science, Doctor of Medicine, Professor of Medical Chemistry and Pharmacy at Montpellier, and eventually Professor of Physics and Toxicology at Strasbourg. During his lifetime, Béchamp was overshadowed by chemist Louis Pasteur, the most celebrated scientist of the 19th century. Pasteur is considered the father of medical microbiology, and some call him the father of modern medicine even, a title that is quite remarkable as Pasteur was not even a physician. Both men were highly regarded members of the French Academy of Science, and each submitted their scientific findings to the Academy for review and publication. Because Béchamp frequently criticized Pasteur's work, an intense rivalry and feud between the two intensified in the Academy. But no matter how carefully Béchamp argued against some of Pasteur's scientific methods and conclusions, the Academy always gave the nod to Pasteur. As a chemist, Pasteur lacked Béchamp's varied professional accreditations in the fields of biology, physics, and pharmacology. Despite this, Pasteur achieved actually great fame by saving the French beer and wine and silkworm industries at the time, and with pasteurization and vaccine research. While Pasteur lacked Béchamp's understanding of disease pathology, he established through his discoveries the essential political connections that extended as high up as the Emperor of France. The Times favored Pasteur because his ideas were just in tune with the science and the politics of his day, and Béchamp's ideas were not. So Béchamp, despite his brilliance, was eventually eclipsed by the younger Pasteur. So to summarize it, according to Pasteur, to fight illness, you have to treat the symptoms. Germs are the causative agents of most diseases. But according to Béchamp, To fight illness, you have to create a healthy body in which disease cannot develop. Béchamp postulated that the diseased, acidic, low oxygen cellular environment is created by a toxic, nutrient deficient diet, toxic emotions, and a toxic lifestyle. To him, it doesn't make much difference between diseased and damaged tissue. He states also that our internal environments and its elements are responsible for the diseases. The disease occurs to a large extent as a function of biology and as a result of changes that take place when metabolic processes become imbalanced. Germs then become symptoms that stimulate the occurrence of more symptoms, which eventually culminate into disease. A weak terrain is naturally more vulnerable to external threats, so it needs to be built up through nutrition, detoxification, and by maintaining a proper pH of acid-alkaline balance. And here, what the scientist with Antoine Béchamp underlined at this time is what very old medicines all around the world have been promoting for a long time. So now I think it's time to dive into the pillars and some rules of the human physiology to respect, to protect, and to enhance our health, our terrain. To be quick, for those who are not really following, the terrain is our constitution, what we genetically inherited, what we've built through time, our sensibility to recurring pathologies, allergies, but also the internal liquids such as the blood, the lymph, brain liquid, conjunctive tissues. It is also the deeper personality, the way we react to stress, our emotions, personal history, etc. It's actually like a soil. If you want to grow things well, you need a healthy soil. We can spend months without eating, a few days without drinking water, but only a few minutes without air. In the yogic world, the prana is the quintessence that is activated through breathing. Stemming from it and other practices, thousands and thousands of breathing exercises have been created to enhance vitality. We really need to learn how to breathe again. Because of the huge amount of stress sources, breathing is deeply affected. Usually the breathing limits its flux up until here. So we need to breathe deeply, quietly. If you are in a moment of any kind of stress, take a few deep breaths, inhaling and exhaling slowly and deeply. You can even shortly retain the air for a few seconds after you've inhaled. The air plays also a major role during the digestion. Eating is actually a similar process to combustion. Combustion needs air to be revived. Drop your cutlery, take a few deep breaths, the food will release its energy even more. The lungs help purifying the blood, and the blood, once in the brain, delivers what it needs to accomplish all the comprehension and meditation work that you want to do, for example. So just little things here. Think of opening your windows in the morning 5 to 10 minutes to create some drafts in your home. And although we know that atmospheric pollution is there, your house is not exempted of it, notably through the presence of bad volatile chemicals from the shitty plastic and chemically waxed furnitures. Some of you have perhaps heard of one of them called formaldehyde. At night also very important to do it about 5 minutes to ventilate. During the night, the lungs, which are also a detox factory, they will be assisted in their detoxification action. And go have a walk, a moderate run, an outdoor physical activity, everything that has you opening the rib cage. At best in a forest, it helps us on so many levels, such as decreasing stress, boosting immune system, improving sleep, etc. It is quite expensive to get such an object, but check out the studies about the bol d'air Jacquier air ball, to understand the benefits of a proper oxygenation. I will put the link in the description. It's also good to know that too much cereals and dairy clog the lungs. That's partly why we sometimes expectorate phlegm. So you have plants like thyme and rosemary that can help you in this process. So there is a plethora of conscious breathing exercises that are really amazing, such as the cardiac coherence one. To get used to breathe better, to do little exercises on a daily basis, all of this will enhance your health, the certain equilibrium, lucidity of the brain, and even the will. Water is life. How many times we heard that? Drinking water should not be forced, but for some people actually, they forget about it, and it's neither not really good. Chinese medicine, for example, advises not to drink too much though. For example, well, in all cases, it seems important to remind ourselves that quality should be preferred over quantity. The industry lures us with the promise that they provide us with the best waters on the market, with all the minerals in there, but that we actually don't need to get in those waters, but rather in fruits and vegetables. The water that we need should be an invigorating water in the manner of a permanent flow caressing the stones, waving over its way. Water is necessary to clean ourselves. We need at best the purest water as possible. Yet it's never really pure in the sense that it is always containing something. Water is actually still a mystery to science. It seems to be a carrier of informations. I guide you here towards the work of Professor Luc Montagnier, a Nobel Prize Award winner. He's taking over the works of a scientist called Jacques Benveniste, who kind of had the same destiny of Antoine Béchamp. It is a fascinating journey that this earth element offers us if we get interested in it. Check out these two documentaries about water memory as a start on your journey, and like I said before, I'll put the links in the video's description. It exists also all kind of filters and dynamizers on the market, and it can be very expensive. So if you don't want or can't venture yourself in that jungle, at least know that the plastic bottles should be avoided, as it contains a lot of chemicals that merge into the water afterwards. So the glass bottles should be rather chosen, and what should be checked is the amount of dry residues. So for this, check the label on the back of the bottle and go for dry residues going between 50 and 300 microgram per liter. Over this load, it is said, according, for example, to the bioelectronic theory from Louis-Claude Vincent, it's a scientist also going along the same line as Antoine Béchamp, it is said that it can overload the draining function of the kidneys. Tap water should be avoided as much as possible. We can't fully trust it, and there are perhaps some exceptions, but in general, I'd not drink that or as less as possible if I have the choice. Last but not least, following the many observations of that incredible element, for example, observations made by Masaru Emoto, it seems that drinking consciously, putting some faith in its intentions, that it helps a lot. Much more than competitive sport, physical activity, the movements, it was inherent to our former rural lifestyle and way before that. But the modern lifestyle has driven us to sedentary lifestyles, and it has taken us away from the innate benefits of moving. Useless to tell you about these distortions that this lifestyle has generated, neither about the benefits of its antithesis. They go without saying, and of course, always practice with moderation and no excesses. Nevertheless, to increase the adaptive potential, do not hesitate to once in a while challenge your system, like doing a little sprint, doing that one extra push-up to get out of your comfort zone if you can, reasonably. If you are interested in the benefits of challenging your own boundaries, I would recommend you to go check what is called the Hormesis law. Super interesting. The lymphatic system expresses the immune system through lymphocytes and garbage that it drains, and it's being galvanized by physical activity. Muscles are also an immune system reserve when this one is in alert. The physical activity helps us to regulate our diet, our sleep, and generates a waterfall of hormones that are beneficial. If in general we're in touch with nature as we used to be, we just climb, we harvest, we hunt, we run, we build, and the body is permanently in the move. There is actually physical activity per se. So do what you can, but know that in a sense the body is made to move, to jump, run, stretch, and it's again Movement is the expression of life. It is a real intersection of health. So get that bike out of your garage and just go. We are made of 1 trillion cells and about 10 trillion bacteria, which corresponds to 2 kilograms of matter in the body. It is the expression of our immunity. Intestines are the home of 80% of our immune system, and these bacteria, they play a major role in our equilibrium, and they need to be fed properly. We are ruled by some physiological rules, and unfortunately, ancient common diets with the advent of chemistry got slowly but surely lost. The soils are worn out because of the capitalistic matrix craziness, intensive agriculture, and it is now known that fruits and vegetables have continuously seen their amounts of vitamins and nutrients decreasing through the years because of that. Do we need to talk about the genocide-like meat industry with antibiotics-fed animals? Just like our worn-out soils, we in the Western world and progressively all around the world have gotten more and more stranger with reasonable, human scale and even spiritually driven husbandry. Let's make it simple. We need to eat colorized stuff. All the vitamins and minerals we need are to be found in colored food. Perhaps we need also to eat less, more varied, non-processed food, that's for sure. We need to eat with moderation, as local, fresh and biological as possible if you can afford it. And slow and soft steam cooking are to be favored also, because otherwise we're killing all the nutrients we need when they get burned. We also do need good fats that we will find in cold extracted oils like olive, canola, flax, walnut oils, etc. We need eggs, real butter, little fishes and other seafoods, and viscous also, but we kind of lost that habit. All the other good things that you can integrate in your meals are, for example, herbs such as coriander, thyme, rosemary, fermented food also, like miso, sauerkraut, and little things like garlic, onions, just throw everything inside. Our intestines have become more and more permeable, hence the insane increase of all our civilization sicknesses through the invasion of molecules that are not physiologically compatible with our bodies. Something that should be mentioned also is chewing. Chewing is very important and everybody can do it. It facilitates the digestion and absorption of nutrients. So go for about 20 to 30 times. It helps to generate saliva, for example, but also bile salts. It helps to generate the feeling of fullness, and it's a decisive habit we need to take if we want to take care of ourselves. Also, if you eat, try to put that screen away because the brain just doesn't understand what it's doing, what it is doing if you eat and check your smartphone at the meantime. Drink water while eating. I would say try to drink before or after your meal, otherwise it slows down the digestion process and it cannot operate, and water cannot operate its cleansing role properly. So while functioning, your stomach is like a hot pan, and drinking water during eating would be like throwing water on a hot pan, and it makes no sense. So just go for lukewarm and hot water also, before or after the meal. One is aware that this section about nutrition could last forever, but in the end it is your intelligence, your responsibility to get informed, especially in a world surrounded by toxic and dead food. Everybody has a different terrain, a different constitution, and it seems essential to be pragmatic and understand what your body needs without, if possible, for yourself to fall into a dogma. I leave you in the description the diet basis as defined by Jean Seignalé, who is one of the numerous top references in this field. And lastly, I would recommend you to go dig all the benefits that the Mediterranean diet offers. There will be a little emphasis here on this topic. It is known that we spend about 1/3 of our life lying down. So sleep is an essential function that allows the body to reload itself and heal. In a book called Why We Sleep from Matthew Walker, it is demonstrated that lack of sleep lack of sleep, could be the source of biological, psychological, and social problems in humans. It would increase the risk of cancer, coronary diseases, and Alzheimer's disease, for example. Life is punctuated by an alternation between sleep and wake. Our internal biological clock, known as the circadian rhythm, is synchronized with the Earth's cycles of light and darkness. So this cycle lasts between 24 and 25 hours. As the day declines and the light loses its intensity, it shifts from the blue to the orange spectrum. This is a signal to the pineal gland that it is time to secrete the sleep hormone. This sleep hormone, this pineal gland, is similar in shape to a pineal pine, and it's a tiny gland located in the brain at the intersection of the eyebrows, and it's also known as the epiphysis. Thanks to neuroscience, we know now that sleep is not a passive state, but actually it's a genuine form of brain activity. This activity includes sorting information, such as moving what we've learned during the day into the long-term memory storage center, and it eliminates what we don't need. The human brain weighs only 2% of the average adult's body weight, but these cells consume 20 to 25% of the body's total energy, and it produces large amounts of waste products that circulate in its nerve tissue. What is the mechanism by which the brain is emptied? Actually, we know this since 2012 with the discovery of the glymphatic system, whose name comes from the combination of the terms glia from glial cells, which serve to support the neurons, and lymphatic for the evacuation system through the lymph. This detoxification system is active while we sleep. So in general, sleep does not really enjoy a very good social image. It is associated with a waste of time, laziness, at a time when the dictates of the day favor productivity and entertainment. From an average of 9 hours of sleep per night at the beginning of the last century, we actually have gone up to 6. So it's 3 hours lost in just over 100 years. Sleep deprivation not only affects our well-being, but also poses a real problem for public health, both in terms of the loss of attention and irritability it causes, and the resulting disorders of the immune system metabolism. Public health studies show that drowsiness, attention deficit disorder, nervousness result from insufficient sleep, and it's believed to be responsible for a large proportion of road accidents. Work is also affected by problem of sleep deprivation. In the US, there is a scientific commission that has shown that major economic, scientific, or ecological disasters are directly linked to human error, linked to sleep disorders. So the night workers, such as medical personnel, police officers, bartenders, DJs, they have a circadian clock that is out of sync. Being active during the period of darkness when melatonin levels are high and sleeping during the period of daylight, it leads to sleep disruption for a large proportion of these night workers. Statistics clearly show that they have a higher rate of cancer, for example 90% increase in breast cancer among nurses who work at night. And this has led the International Agency for Research on Cancer to classify night work as a potential carcinogen. It's carcinogen 2B acronym according to the WHO. Also, our appetite is regulated mainly by two hormones, one that is called leptin, which induces a feeling of satiety and increases energy expenditure, and also one called ghrelin, which stimulates our appetite and reduces our physical expenditure. However, the production of leptin is decreased in case of insufficient sleep, and conversely, ghrelin sees its production increase. At the same time, when sleep duration is reduced, the production of hormones that regulate glucose metabolism is also disrupted. It promotes weight gain and possibly the appearance of glucose intolerance with progressive progression to type 2 diabetes. So nowadays the problem is that we're surrounded by screens of all kinds. And to fully understand sleep and how it interacts with technology, we need to take a little detour to study the role of melatonin and the role of the blue light also. So the melatonin, the sleep hormone, it is the internal synchronizer of our biological clock. So during the day, a small amount is produced by the body and it circulates in the bloodstream, but only in the dark it is released in the brain. When the light decreases in intensity, its level increases to reach the peak of secretion around 3 o'clock in the morning. So Mr. Sandman is actually melatonin, and that makes us yawn and gradually close our eyes. And when that happens, you need to go to bed actually. Don't miss that train. Young and healthy adults generally secrete about 5 to 25 micrograms of melatonin each night, but this production can be slowed down or even completely suppressed by light, especially the blue light. We'll see that later. Insufficient melatonin leads actually to sleep disturbances, nocturnal awakenings, but also to an inferior quality of sleep, of which we're not always aware. So one sleeps, but sleep is not regenerative because it does not access the phase that allows deep repair. For example, if you don't remember your dreams, it can be a signal that you're not accessing this phase of sleep, for example. So the melatonin does not only help us to sleep well, it's also a super powerful antioxidant, and it exerts a major protective action against the proliferation of cancer cells. It neutralizes stress hormones, and it destroys free radicals and repairs our DNA. Several studies, they have shown that the long-term exposure to very low frequency magnetic fields is associated with a decrease in melatonin production. Electromagnetic fields, another big topic, we'll see that in another video. So now the blue light. Blue light is not really blue, it's white in appearance. And it can be natural or artificial. And it actually contains a spectrum of colors that includes the blue. So during the course of the day, the light changes from the blue to the orange-yellow spectrum. So on one hand, the blue light contains a great deal of energy that promotes alertness, good mood, and a sense of well-being. And on the other hand, the high level of flicker, it causes glare, which can be the cause of visual fatigue, headaches, mental and physical fatigue, that can be felt after many hours spent in front of a computer screen or any other electronic devices. The body uses natural blue light from the sun to regulate the sleep and wake cycles and circadian rhythms. But the artificial blue light comes from the light of the screens, from also LED lamps, and like I said, all type of electronic devices. So reading on a device that emits blue light, it drives a person to usually take longer to fall asleep. It causes also a decrease in the production of melatonin, what we said, and in turn it affects the length and quality of sleep. The pineal gland does not make the difference between daylight and these electromagnetic waves. For the pineal gland, it's the same signal that tells it to decrease melatonin production. So exposure to blue light combined with a constant stream of notification arriving on your phone, it keeps the body in a state of constant overexcitement and alertness. And this delays the sleep. Finally, electrical devices that generate electromagnetic fields near the head of the bed, they emit a signal that disrupts access to a deep and restful sleep, so get that away. Overexposure to technology can be the beginning of a vicious circle. So the more we consume, the more sleep is disturbed. The less sleep you get, the less control you have over your impulses and addictions, and the more tempted you are to compulsively check your email and connect to social networks or whatever. The more you indulge in this temptation, the less melatonin you produce, the less you sleep, and your health deteriorates. And the less healthy you are, the more pain settles in your body, and the more you sleep, it is disrupted. The sicker the body is, and the more the electromagnetic waves act as amplifiers. There are little softwares, for example, for your screens that regulate the blue-orange light cycle on your screen, and there is one called Flux. I will leave the reference in the description also. So, 2 little advices to optimize your sleep. Your room should first be considered as a temple. Try to let's try to sleep at regular hours on weekdays and weekends to avoiding social jet lag. So it means going to bed and getting up at abnormal late hours when the work week is over. Respect the circadian rhythm also. Lie down and get up as much as possible in phase with the natural light. So it's more natural, it's normal to sleep more in the winter than is in the summer. Try to sleep in complete darkness. Try also to chase away all these little polluting lights, such as those from standby devices. Turn off the screen 2 hours before going to sleep if you can, and try to avoid stimulants about 6 hours before bedtime, like coffee, alcohol, stimulating spices, chocolate, tobacco. If you think of your bed as a movie theater, it can be disruptive for the bed. Bed is actually made for sleeping and also to do little cuddles, of course. Try to put your phone on airplane mode actually, and even if you can, turn it off completely. I know that many of us use smartphone as an alarm clock, but for this you could just provide yourself with a little battery powered alarm clock. And know that even when your phone is completely turned off, it still radiates to a very little extent, but it still radiates. And lastly, it's always better to sleep in a room that is not too hot and not too cold. So a topic that is a bit more abstract here, but it's also another pivotal sphere that has a huge influence on our global health. Somatization of diseases is not a mystery anymore. We know that emotions, through its wide spectrum, can lead to physiological symptoms. Stress is a response to the outdoor environment. On a short-term span, it's good. But when it's chronic, it can be the cause to many impairments such as cardiovascular, hypertension, eczema, memory loss, asthma, anxious troubles, headaches, infections, and ulcers. So it seems quite important to go back to the interdependence between our microbiome and the emotions. Already in the beginning of the 20th century, there was a very interesting English medical doctor that is called Edward Bach, who was already talking about that interplay, interconnection, and he classified several emotion families linked with several bacteria families. And later on he created several floral elixirs supposed to alleviate emotions. It's super romantic, I really like it, and I would recommend you to read the book called Heal Thyself from him. It's overall a super nice treatise of holistic health. Nowadays, there are many researchers that are digging the lead of the interconnection between guts and emotions. For example, serotonin is for 90% present in the gastrointestinal tract. 50% of the dopamine is also there. And 30% of the neurons that are not in the brain are for 70% in the gastrointestinal tract. This brings us back to the capital importance of what our body should physiologically absorb. From another point of view, emotions in the manner of physical pain, which warns us of a body part that is injured. Emotion inform us on an inner conflict, an inner gap. May emotions be judged negative or positive? The mental part judges that. But an emotion lets us know about our non-unity somehow. And they're fabulous messages. They're not a problem, they're actually a solution. And what we tend to do concerning emotions, in the same way that we do for physical symptoms, we turn off the alarm, whereas it is all about extinguishing the fire. Deciphering and understanding emotions can be a lifelong task for many of us, but it seems very important not to run away from them so that we can be healthier, more lucid and proactive in our lives and to communicate better with others. In our day and age, the world reaches an immense confusion and division, and if we want to ground ourselves to be more responsible of our destinies, to communicate and unite with others, acknowledging and working on our emotions is essential. So, to go back to the main topic of this video, just a little comment about fear that is leading us to a poor health and to division, and it's by far the favorite tool of the Matrix to maintain us in a state in which we deliberately delegate our responsibilities to a state, to a government, to a vaccine, to dogmas of any kind. I think it's greatly time to take our lives back, to inform ourselves so that we can make choices for ourselves accordingly. Knowledge disperses fear, and we should not prevent ourselves from thinking and being intelligent. If we start to be attentive to our bodies and our profound needs and inspirations, we will not only be able to evolve on an individual level and to be in full possession of our being again, but this will also resonate at the level of the whole human community, I'm sure. There is a really cute movie that I love, which is called La Belle Verte, The Green Beautiful, from Colin Serrault, a movie from 1996. You can find it on YouTube, I'm sure, on streaming. It's a beautiful synthesis of the current human phase, but it also gives us an overview of the infinite beauty of this planet and its inhabitants. So in the end, health or death? Well, death is part of the life cycle, and the fear of death conditions a lot of our behaviors. The system knows that activating fear reinforces its influence on the through social control. In doing so, we may tend to accept more new rules, perhaps less freedom, and perhaps things like, I don't know, a new, untested, unsafe new vaccine supposed to save the planet. Death is also part of health because it is part of life, and health is the default modus of those incredible vehicles in which our consciousnesses are settled. But do we really wish to have someone or any kind of institutions or movement telling how to be healthy? No. It is our choice only. And we can only make a choice if we have knowledge. Knowledge disperses fear. Hopefully you found this program relevant enough to go dig for things for yourself. I hope it was not too much of a pain to listen to it with my very bad accent. I'm really sorry, I'm trying my best, but it's not easy at all. I will practice more, I promise. I wish you a super nice day or evening or night, whatever. And thank you for your attention. Ciao.